Welcome to Synapsis. I'm Dr Özdemir, a biomedical scientist specialized in neuroscience. In biology, synapsis is the stage during cell division where chromosome pairs line up before exchanging genetic information. For me, synapsis is a bridge to make medical science more understandable for everyone. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Today we're exploring some aspects of aging and how a well-known drug, Viagra, could become a part of this conversation. After a quick recap of how cardiovascular aging happens and how this drug works, we will hear about the clinical use of Viagra in men and women from a urologist, who is also my dad, Dr. Gürhan Özdemir. After that, a mention of how Viagra's active ingredient Sildenafil is used in lab longevity research, and an attempt at answering whether one could use Viagra on a regular basis to combat aging. Before going headfirst into Viagra and how it works, let's talk a bit about mechanisms of aging that are relevant to Viagra. Aging might seem like this mysterious process that just happens as the years go by, but it's an incredibly complex series of events where your genes, your metabolism, and your overall health all contribute different parts to it. Contributions which can be both beneficial or quite bad. Think of your body as a car. When you first get it, everything runs smoothly, but over time, parts start to wear down. The engine doesn't hum quite the same, and you might notice it takes a little longer to start. If you miss your maintenance appointments, neglect your warning signs, and keep hitting every pothole, odds are it will age a bit quicker. So even though the chronological age of your car might just be a couple years, its biological age, if you will, can be as if it's decades old, simply because of its quality of life. Your body works similarly, except it's a lot more fascinating than a car, in my opinion. And for both you and the car, the biological age, which is how healthy your cells and tissues are, can be a lot more important than how long ago you were born. At the heart of this is your cardiovascular system, your body's engine. As we age, the walls of our blood vessels start changing. The inner lining of the vessels in direct contact with the blood flowing is the endothelium, and just above it sits a strong, smooth muscle layer. The endothelium helps regulate that flow not only by acting as a barrier that chooses what to pick up from the blood, but it also produces chemicals to signal the smooth muscle layer to dilate or constrict to regulate blood pressure. With aging, this endothelial layer becomes less efficient at its job, and the blood vessel starts to lose its elasticity. Imagine a brand new rubber band that stretches easily. Now think of an old rubber band that feels stiff and cracks when you pull it. That's kind of what happens to our arteries as we get older. The stiffness in return leads to higher blood pressure, also called hypertension, because now the same amount of blood has to squeeze through a narrower, less flexible path, which requires the heart to push the blood with more force to get the blood through those stiffer vessels. In response to this change, the muscle above the endothelium starts to thicken because it recruits more cells to withstand the pressure as a defense mechanism. All of this causes inflammation, and the muscle cells start releasing calcium and collagen, which combined with other waste products and cholesterol in your blood, they form plaques and thicken the arteries further, making them harder and less flexible, causing atherosclerosis. Think of it like pipes that slowly gather rust and mineral buildup, making it harder for water to flow smoothly. The plaques then either block the arteries and interrupt the blood flow, or burst and travel to places where it can cause a heart attack or a stroke. While all of this is happening, the overworking of the heart causes the heart muscle to thicken, especially in its left ventricle, where the oxygenated blood is pumped to the body from. This thickening is like the engine in the car getting bigger to handle heavier loads. While this might sound like a good thing, it actually makes the heart less efficient. A thicker heart can hold less blood, and it doesn't relax as well between the beats, which can eventually lead to heart failure, much like a car engine that overheats and wears out faster with time. While the damage might be initially small and only start in the blood vessels, not going to maintenance makes what was once a pipe issue an engine issue. If you think that all sounds very serious, you are right. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of premature death in the world. In 2016, 18 million deaths were attributed to it. And as the human population manages to grow older and increase its life expectancy, our biological aging becomes more and more an important risk factor for cardiovascular disease. A little side note here. It's not that the chronological age isn't important. It certainly is, because as time passes, our DNA accumulates more damage. Even if it could be somehow possible to be in an environment that is completely safe, without any toxic chemicals or radiation, the DNA mutates simply because its biology demands it. And that is why we evolved to have the ability to repair our DNA damage, thanks to several genes which exist simply to do that. If those genes mutate, or if the accumulation of damage is too large to be handled efficiently, that's when genetic problems arise. Now, let's go back to the main reason you clicked on this episode. Why does this all matter when we talk about Viagra? How could Viagra have benefits for aging? Well, Viagra is known largely for what it does for men with erectile dysfunction, but it wasn't originally developed to be a bedroom aid. It was actually designed to help prevent heart attacks by dilating the blood vessels and increasing blood flow. Think of it like a rust preventive lubricant for your circulatory system. Fun fact, it's even used to treat pulmonary hypertension in newborn infants and children, which I'll get back to a little later. Till then, let's talk about how Viagra works. Its generic name is Sildenafil, and Viagra is just the most popular brand for it. Its main effect is basically ensuring that a certain traffic light stays green, and the button that would make it turn red is blocked from access. Imagine your body is a complex system of roads and highways, where blood flow is like traffic. To get the traffic to flow to where you want it to go, a signaling system has to direct that flow. One of the main traffic controllers in the system is a molecule called nitric oxide. It's released throughout the body to tell the smooth muscles surrounding the blood vessels to relax, so that blood can flow more freely into the area. Another side note. This is one of the reasons why garlic is super duper healthy, because it boosts the production of nitric oxide, which signals smooth muscles to relax, causing vasodilation and more blood flow throughout the body, including to the genital area. It ends up indirectly supporting sexual function by maintaining healthy arteries and preventing endothelial dysfunction. Another substance known to cause vasodilation is alcohol, but it has the opposite effects on sexual function and erections. Why is that? Alcohol dilates blood vessels by suppressing the sympathetic nervous system, which normally keeps vessels in a slightly constricted state. This suppression then lowers blood pressure and gives a sense of warmth and relaxation. But it also disrupts the brain-body connection necessary for an erection and impairs the release of signaling from nerve endings themselves, which would stimulate nitric oxide release, stopping the desire from leaving the brain, essentially. It's like turning on the wrong lights in the body. Blood flows to the skin, causing redness and heat, but not where it's needed for sexual function. Just like how your memory-forming neurons get drunk in the process and not work properly, so do your cells that should respond to sexual desire. Long-term alcohol use also impairs testosterone production, which further reduces sexual drive over time. Not to mention the damage chronic alcohol does to blood vessels and nerves, which can also contribute to long-term erectile dysfunction. For nitric oxide to do its job, it needs to trigger a chain of events inside the body. Once nitric oxide is released, it activates an enzyme called guanylate cyclase, which then makes another molecule called cyclic guanosine monophosphate, or cGMP. Think of cGMP as the green light that keeps the blood vessels open and allows blood to flow. But the body also has a built-in way to stop this process when it's no longer needed, like turning the traffic light back to red when the situation's over. And that's done by an enzyme called PDE5, stands for phosphodiesterase type 5. This is our red light. It breaks down cyclic GMP, therefore removes the signal to keep the blood vessels open, resulting in constriction of the blood vessels. This is a perfectly normal dynamic. If it weren't for PDE5 and its red light function, things could get very uncomfortable. This dynamic is slightly disturbed in men with erectile dysfunction, and Viagra comes to the rescue because it works by inhibiting PDE5. Basically, it blocks the red light. When PDE5 is inhibited, the green light cyclic GMP stays on for longer, meaning the blood vessels stay open for longer and more blood flows into the penis, keeping the erection strong. Talking about these effects on the penis, of course, doesn't mean that this traffic light control mechanism is only found in the penis. PDE5 is present throughout the body, but its concentration is higher in the penis, which is why sildenafil mainly works there, while also having effects elsewhere, like in the blood vessels of your lung, and relaxes them, this way treating pulmonary arterial hypertension. Let's do a quick side note here for its use in infants. When a baby is still in the womb, it gets its oxygen through the placenta from the mother's bloodstream, so the lungs are not used for breathing until birth. And in the womb, the lungs are filled with fluid, without much blood flowing through them. And since there is no oxygen exchange, the body keeps the blood vessels in the lung constricted to maintain high resistance. Thanks to this pulmonary vascular resistance, most of the blood is diverted to where it matters more, like the heart or the brain. At birth, air replaces the fluid in the lungs, and the oxygen causes the lung blood vessels to relax and open up, reducing resistance for blood to flow easily through the lungs to pick up oxygen and distribute it. This switch from constricted to open blood vessels is essential for the baby to start breathing independently. If the vessels stay constricted, this can cause persistent pulmonary hypertension of the newborn, which impedes adequate oxygen delivery to the tissues. What sildenafil does here is it relaxes the smooth muscle in the pulmonary vessels, leading to vasodilation and reduced pulmonary arterial pressure. For this use, sildenafil is also used under the brand name Revatio. Its pediatric use is approved in the European Union, but not yet by the FDA. It's a fair question to ask why Viagra doesn't cause an erection all the time, even if someone isn't aroused. Think of Viagra as a helper. It doesn't create the situation, but enhances the response to it. If nitric oxide isn't released due to a lack of arousal, it won't be effective, because it needs nitric oxide to start the process, and that happens in the brain. When a person becomes sexually stimulated, the brain sends signals down the spinal cord to the nerves in the penis. This triggers the release of nitric oxide, which starts the whole process of blood flow to the penis. So Viagra is like a traffic controller, keeping the blood flow in the right direction at the right time. But it only works when the brain and the body are already signaling that it's time for an erection. It doesn't create desire, it just amplifies the body's natural response to arousal. Without sildenafil, this process relies solely on the body's ability to release enough nitric oxide and generate the cyclic GMP response naturally. Let's hear more about why erectile dysfunction happens and why Viagra is a suitable treatment for men and perhaps also women from someone who talks about this probably every day. My dad, Dr. Gürhan Özdemir, a urologist.
Sildenafil is a very special molecule, mostly used in men at first hand, but after all, it was logical to use sildenafil in women also, because due to the capacity of blood flow rising after the use of sildenafil, in men, pineal area, the cavernous bodies are fulfilled with blood, causing a full erection. Similar effect happens in women at their clitoris, because clitoris is a small model of penis, and it also has cavern body type of arteriovenous systems within it. So with the effect of sildenafil, where man gets full erection, woman also gets erection in the means of clitoral blood flow. Causes man to be very effective, whereas the woman with erected clitoris can enjoy a better satisfaction during the sexual intercourse. While seeing these kind of positive effects due to the use of sildenafil, who should use them and why they use them? Leading cause is about the arterial malfunction due to aging, due to diabetes, due to hypertension, due to inappropriate medicine use. These all cause problems within the arterial walls, and it is a very disturbing understanding for men for not keeping a good full erection in order to start a intercourse with a woman, with a partner he likes. And this is the reason it has started to be produced for men at first sight, and it was very, very successful. The first one was Viagra, and the company that produced Viagra just skyrocketed in the stock market in New York because it was very effective and it was sold like a cake. Following this, why not create a Viagra for women? It was also put into market, and for some time it was used by some women, putting out some good results and some positive feelings, I can say. One thing that everyone must think very clearly is that you have to be a person good in cardiovascular health. It could be 20 milligrams per action for one day. If 20 milligrams is going to cause some side effects, we choose 5 milligrams daily to get a good, satisfying erection. A healthy person can take up to 100 milligrams because this was used. There was a 100 milligram Viagra in the market, and for the healthy persons, it didn't cause too much problems. But after all the studies that's been made, now we always advise to give 20 milligrams of such materials, the derivatives of sildenafil, to present a safe usage for an erection. Passing 20 milligrams is riding on a highway with 250 miles per hour car. You can have accident anytime. And with the persons who are having cardiovascular diseases, even the 20 milligram usage must be under strict control. Maybe using 5 milligrams 3 days as a starter and see what happens is a better way to understand. The person who is diagnosed with heart disease must have a thorough checkup and control by a cardiologist, and he or she must really have all the details about pumping force of the heart and peripheral resistance of the vascular system. If these are shown to be good or shown to be available for a use of sildenafil in such an action, then it can be used. But one must strictly obey the rules about the use of milligrams. So if you exceed the amount of milligrams that you should use and go more and more, that will be lethal. When vasodilation happens, the internal arterial pressure falls. When internal arterial pressure falls, the circulating blood is not enough. Not enough to go to the lungs, not enough to go to the other peripheric vessels and peripheric organs all around. Then we will lack a lot of oxygen, which would be causing acidosis as the carbon dioxide levels will rise. And with this, it will be the starting point of I can say, a disaster, ruining many things in many parts of the body. Sildenafil is a very special molecule, mostly used in men at first hand, but after all, it was logical to use sildenafil in women also, because due to the capacity of blood flow rising after the use of sildenafil, in men, pineal area, the cavernous bodies are fulfilled with blood, causing a full erection. Similar effect happens in women at their clitoris, because clitoris is a small model of penis, and it also has cavern body type of arteriovenous systems within it. So with the effect of sildenafil, where man gets full erection, woman also gets erection in the means of clitoral blood flow. Causes man to be very effective, whereas the woman with erected clitoris can enjoy a better satisfaction during the sexual intercourse. While seeing these kind of positive effects due to the use of sildenafil, who should use them and why they use them? leading cause is about the arterial malfunction due to aging, due to diabetes, due to hypertension, due to inappropriate medicine use. These all cause problems within the arterial walls, and it is a very disturbing understanding for men for not keeping a good full erection in order to start a intercourse with a woman, with a partner he likes. And this is the reason it has started to be produced for men at first sight, and it was very, very successful. The first one was Viagra, and the company that produced Viagra just skyrocketed in the stock market in New York because it was very effective and it was sold like a cake. Following this, why not create a Viagra for women? It was also put into market, and for some time it was used by some women, putting out some good results and some positive feelings, I can say. One thing that everyone must think very clearly is that you have to be a person good in cardiovascular health. It could be 20 milligrams per action for one day. If 20 milligrams is going to cause some side effects, we choose 5 milligrams daily to get a good, satisfying erection. A healthy person can take up to 100 milligrams because this was used. There was a 100 milligram Viagra in the market, and for the healthy persons, it didn't cause too much problems. But after all the studies that's been made, now we always advise to give 20 milligrams of such materials, the derivatives of sildenafil, to present a safe usage for an erection. Passing 20 milligrams is riding on a highway with 250 miles per hour car. You can have accident anytime. And with the persons who are having cardiovascular diseases, even the 20 milligram usage must be under strict control. Maybe using 5 milligrams 3 days as a starter and see what happens is a better way to understand. The person who is diagnosed with heart disease must have a thorough checkup and control by a cardiologist, and he or she must really have all the details about pumping force of the heart and peripheral resistance of the vascular system. If these are shown to be good or shown to be available for a use of sildenafil in such an action, then it can be used. But one must strictly obey the rules about the use of milligrams. So if you exceed the amount of milligrams that you should use and go more and more, that will be lethal. When vasodilation happens, the internal arterial pressure falls. When internal arterial pressure falls, the circulating blood is not enough. Not enough to go to the lungs, not enough go to the other peripheric vessels and peripheric organs all around. Then we will lack a lot of oxygen, which would be causing acidosis as the carbon dioxide levels will rise. And with this, it will be the starting point of I can say, a disaster, ruining many things in many parts of the body.
PDE5 has been identified in vaginal smooth muscle tissue and the clitoral shaft. PDE5 is expressed in vaginal, clitoral, and labial smooth muscles. So PDE5 containing cells similar to those found in the penis have also been confirmed within the clitoris. And a study has shown that PDE5 inhibitor has been associated with higher attainment of orgasm satisfaction, sexual arousal, and sexual satisfaction in women. The use of a PDE5 inhibitor came with a slightly increased risk of headache and flushing, but no other side effects were observed. Now Knowing all of this about Viagra, it's a natural question for scientists to wonder whether this drug that acts like an engine oil could combat aging by keeping the cardiovascular system younger and for longer. So, how do they figure this out? Researchers use a special group of mice that ages faster due to a genetic tweak. Earlier in the episode, I quickly touched on DNA repair mechanisms to fix random mutations that happen on a daily basis. One of the genes involved in this is ERCC1, and it makes the ERCC1 protein, which acts like a tiny repair technician for our DNA, especially against damage done by ionizing radiation. This protein is extremely important for the ability to cut the damaged DNA out and patch it back together. Mutations in this gene itself come with dire consequences. Mice whose ERCC1 gene has been completely knocked out live only for a few weeks. Something really cool about genetics research is that we can adjust how much of the gene stays functional without having to remove the whole thing. It's called creating a truncated mutant, where the recipe that makes the protein is cut short. So the product somewhat resembles the intention, but it's not enough for full function. For the ERCC1 gene, the researchers used mice that were missing 7 amino acids from the protein originally 297 amino acids long. These mice live approximately 6 months instead of up to 2 years, and progressively develop multiple age-related phenotypes that are commonly observed in elderly humans, such as hypertension, vascular stiffness, and cardiomyopathy. Their aortas have lower contractility and less ability to relax and dilate because of the higher stiffness. This makes them a very useful model to test aging-related vascular dysfunction. They've also been used to test the effect of caloric restriction on aging. When their food was cut down by 30%, their blood vessels stayed healthier, and correlated to that, their aging slowed down and they lived longer. A little side note. Restriction of food intake by 30% has become a well-known anti-aging lab intervention. The positive effect of caloric restriction on the vascular health in this study could not be achieved with typically used blood pressure lowering drugs or by blocking the renin-angiotensin system. So in this study, what 30% caloric restriction did for vascular health, antihypertensive medications couldn't. Researchers also found that this deceleration of vascular aging with dietary restriction was associated with improved cyclic GMP signaling, our green light for blood flow. Which begged the question, is this cGMP signaling what is responsible for the anti-aging effect? If so, then chronically inhibiting PDE5, the red light, should decelerate intrinsic vascular aging by making more cGMP available for use. And maybe this could increase lifespan. And what can we use to inhibit PDE5? Sildenafil. They used ERCC1 mutated and non-mutated mice with or without sildenafil. The treatment didn't give statistically significant results for the healthy mice, but the mutated mice showed better vasodilation and vasoconstriction ability after treatment. And further tests implied that this was mainly through improving the nitric oxide cGMP signaling in the vascular smooth muscle cells. So it acted directly at the vascular source rather than changing the blood pressure from the kidney, for example. This study did not actually last for the entire lifespan of the mice. It was only for 14 weeks, which for animal research is still a very long time because you check the animals every single day for the duration of your study. But studies like this did help clear the way towards funding larger studies that can explore sildenafil for longevity to see if its positive effects on vascular health could actually be impactful enough to extend both health and lifespan. Speaking of giving mice drugs every day, let's go back to the doctor's office to ask if someone could take sildenafil every day.
5 milligrams of sildenafil use is put into market. The oxygenation of blood and oxygenated blood reaching the endpoints of the capillaries and reaching the organs to give them some oxygenated blood and some other minerals and glucose and lipids, they will be more healthy and they can easily get rid of the dead cells that are accumulated within the organs or so. So the exchange of old cells creating some new cells that will give some good effect to a longevity within the organs. For instance, to say, when sometimes we take one kidney out due to some reason, and by time the other kidney grows, gets bigger, produces new arteries, new capillaries to take the load of the body. And it can compensate. Just only one kidney can make you survive. Neoangiogenesis, this means the newly established arterial systems within the body, within the organs, can provide regeneration within the body to regenerate the whole body to stay healthy. These kind of things can happen in liver donations also. Similar thing when you see, some things happen within the brain. Even the dominant sphere in the brain is lost in some tumors. You can regenerate the passive part with some rehabilitation. Of course, some vascular regenerations can help this. So when there is a need for some extra energy, some extra blood, some extra oxygen, body will build new systems to let these blood supplies reach their destinations. Vaginal regeneration, penile regeneration, and as much as you secrete some semen from the prostate and from the testicular body, the latest studies show that men having secreted semen oftenly by a sexual act or by themselves with a masturbation faces lower risks of prostate cancer. The reduced risk of prostate cancer is bound to the operating system, cellular activity within the prostate, because prostate is using its cellular systems to produce milky substance to feed the spermia, so the spermia can live longer when ejaculated out. So when you let the system down and when you don't use ejaculations with sex or with masturbation, massive buildup happens within the prostate and seminal vesicles. This will cause a lot of infections, stones, and those kind of irregular happenings, turning the normal cells into irregular cells. In this way, at the end, when this thing goes on more longer, we can see cancer cells being produced within these systems.
The National Institute on Aging has been funding the interventions testing program for more than 20 years to test whether compounds can extend longevity in mice, hoping that they can also do so in humans. And a study dedicated to comparing sildenafil and captopril, a hypertensive drug, is currently underway using a total of almost 700 healthy mice. And I personally would love to see if caloric restriction will also be explored as part of this, to see what the combination of diet change and vascular function will do compared to each separate from one another. Many compounds have already been tested as part of this program, and you can find the full list and conclusions for each on the NIA website. Some interesting findings are that a few of the big selling supplements, such as fish oil, curcumin, L-leucine, or even resveratrol, have all been discredited for their proposed longevity effect, while rapamycin, normally used to prevent transplant rejections, actually did improve longevity. So what's the takeaway from all of this? Aging is a complex process and there's no magic pill. Not yet. But the research happening right now is definitely exciting, and it shows that sometimes unexpected tools like Viagra might offer clues on how we can stay healthier for longer. Science is full of surprises, so who knows, the next breakthrough might come from the most unlikely of places. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and if you enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe. Santé!